and welcome to the Sailing and Cruising the East Coast of the United States podcast. I'm Bela Musits.
And I'm Mike Wasserman.
Hey, Mike, today's guest on the podcast is Chris Blankenship. He's a longtime sailor who is based in New Jersey, but he's gone on many long passages as a crew member. He gets connected to the captains who are looking for crew on those passages through an organization called OPO, which stands for Offshore Passage Opportunities. We had a great conversation about his experience crewing for professional captains.
Bela, this should be really interesting, and especially for listeners who might want to expand or find creative ways to grow their sailing experiences and build some expertise.
I think you're right, Mike. So let's jump right into my conversation with Chris. Chris, hi. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, Chris. Thanks so much for doing this. You're a listener, and you reached out to me in an email, and you had a really interesting background and some interesting experiences. So I thought you would be a wonderful guest. So thank you for agreeing to do this.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah. So tell us how you sort of got started in sailing.
Well, I have to say that. So I guess when I was a little baby boy, my dad and my grandfather used to take me out on the boat, but it didn't go very often, but we didn't go very fast. And I kind of got older and I was into more power boats. So I had power boats and things. And then I guess it's probably been 10 years ago. It's not been that long ago. My dad gave me a little Catalina 22 that needed to get fixed up. And I worked on it. Then it fell to the wayside for a while. And then I worked on it again with my two sons. And long story short is we had a Catalina 22. Then we ended up buying a Catalina 27. And then I bought a Gemini. It's a 34-foot catamaran. And we've been just going bigger and bigger. And now I actually just currently bought it's a PDQ 32, which is another small catamaran. But yeah, we really liked it, so we just keep going and going and going with it. So yeah,
That's excellent.
Yeah.
We have a common background there. I started on a Catalina 22 as well.
Okay. I still have it. It's sitting right behind my garage right now. So in case we need to get it out, I still have it.
I sold mine a number of years ago, but that was a great little boat. It really was and I think mine was like hull number 16,000 something. I mean, they made a lot of those suckers.
They made a bunch of them. I mean, it's a great boat for somebody to learn on, because I moved up in boats, and then we actually sold our Gemini because, well, we ended up taking a trip to the Bahamas. I brought it back and I figured, well, I'm not going to be able to take a trip right away. So I sold the boat while the boat was in pretty decent shape. And then I was missing sailing. So I put the 22 back in, but I sailed that thing hard. I mean, I was trying to flip it over, and I tried pretty hard and really couldn't do it. It's pretty forgiving for someone who doesn't really know exactly what they're doing. So, I mean, you lean it over as hard as you can, and then the rudder comes out of the water and it turns right up into the wind, and you really got to try pretty hard to sink this thing. So
yeah,
it's a cool boat. I like it.
Did yours have a swing keel or a fixed keel?
It did. It had the swing keel. Yep.
Yeah.
No, it was cool.
Yeah, and we used to we had a house on a lake, and we kept it there. But on occasion, I would trailer it someplace else. And the beauty of that thing is, I mean, with my wife and, our kids were little then, I could, put the mast up and, and then from the time we pulled into the launch ramp, took us about an hour, maybe an hour and a half at the most, to kind of get the boat ready, the mast up, everything sort of in shape, and plop it in the water. So it was great. Yeah. Excellent. Super. And so where are you doing your sailing now? And what type of sailing are you doing?
I live in New Jersey, so I am in the most terrible spot along the ICW. We're not actually technically on the ICW, but the ICW does go all the way up. I don't know, up to Maine, I think, somewhere, but I'm not exactly sure. But anyway, we are one of the spots that everybody skips. They go from like Sandy Hook to Cape May. and I
Yeah.
live just north of Atlantic City. It's below Barnegat Bay,
Oh,
but
okay.
it's a great little bay though. It's just a small little bay, but you could cruise around. There's a bunch of little, little beach here, and there's a couple little spots. But I have a great spot that's I can get to the bay in 15 minutes or less,
Oh,
10
nice.
minutes from my dock. So we just go zoom out, and I think it's 3.5 miles across. So it's not huge, but you just do some tacks back and forth, and it's a great, it's a good time. I really like it. You can go up the river. There's a couple cuts up the river I cut through, and just to make it more challenging, and and that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, we did just buy another boat. I just brought it up. It's funny. I've been listening to your podcast again, and my wife and I just brought a boat up from Brunswick, Georgia. The
No way.
exact same marina that you guys are at, and everything. That's where I just bought my boat and brought it up from.
Oh,
And yeah, my
wow.
wife and I just did the ICW. We did it. I think it took us a little over 2 weeks. But we
Yeah.
were going, and so part of what we were going to talk about. But I have done a bunch of deliveries,
Yes.
and I was kind of on a march. Like I shouldn't have really done it because I kind of pushed my wife. But I was, get up in the morning and go, 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 go as long as I
Yes.
could. I didn't do it
Yes.
like you guys. I probably after listening, I'm like, well, maybe I should have slowed down a little bit. But we bought the boat. It was on the hard. We went and looked at it, and we looked at it real quick and came back down, and we said, we want to do a sea trial on the boat. And if the boat's good, we're going to take it home because it was just a pain getting down there and all that. So we rented a van, put in a bunch of food. I had a little outboard motor. I mean, I brought everything like we're going to go home. Brought a bunch of tools because I didn't know what was going to be up with the boat, but bought the boat, and we launched the boat, took a little test drive, and the next day we were like, okay, let's go. And we had one day sitting at the dock, and then we took off and went to started heading home to New Jersey with it. So, but I had to
Wow.
fix a couple things before we actually made it out the gate. But it all turned out well. We made it here, and only a couple storms along the way.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother story.
Is this on the catamaran?
This is on the PDQ 32 that we have now.
Oh, okay.
So I've had that for maybe a couple months. I mean, maybe I don't even think we've had it 6 months yet. It's probably been 4 months. What was July?
Okay.
That's when we brought it back. It was nice and warm. We had no air conditioning, so it was a great trip. But no,
And
it worked out good.
did you do the whole trip on the ICW, or did you go outside?
Yeah, I wanted to go outside, but my wife, she gets seasick. She's been
Mm.
playing along with me with the whole sailing thing. So, and the boat has a dinghy davit with the dinghy on the back, but it was bent, and it actually hangs down pretty low. So we were worried about it taking on water out in the ocean. So just to make it a decent trip, we just stayed on the ICW, and I wasn't going to push her too hard. So
Sure.
we figured we'll
Sure.
get the boat home. I'll do some work to it, and I've replaced all the windows on it. I bought a new dinghy davit. I'm in my garage. It's sitting right across me right now, but we just pulled it out of the water yesterday. So I'm going to get started on the winter projects here soon,
Yeah.
and then hopefully next summer we were talking about Maine, maybe heading up your way. So who knows?
Oh, nice.
That's what we
Nice.
talked about. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. So when you get to Cape May,
Yep.
the number of times I've done this trip, I think 3 or 4 times now, I always go, once you get to Cape May on a bigger sailboat, you can't go inside because the bridges are too low. Did you have
Right.
to go outside from Cape May up to Sandy Hook or up to Barnegat?
No. So the boat that we have it's got a 49-foot mast, so I can get under the bridges. So I came in from Delaware Bay, came in through like
Yeah.
the back canal, and
The
went in.
canal.
We stayed at Cape May for a night, and then we went from Cape May right up to Atlantic City. So we're the next inlet north-ish of Atlantic City
Yes.
is where we come in. But yeah, I've
Yeah.
gone around Cape May because we had a boat. Not I didn't. I was on a boat that we couldn't go around, but we
Yeah.
snuck inside, like closer to shore. There's a way to cut. You don't have to go all the way around the shoals. You can kind of cut in closer to land and cut around there. So there's
Yeah.
a little spot there. But yeah, I've done that trip. That was actually on one of the deliveries I was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, this last time we came up, for those who don't listen to the podcast, there's about 20 plus episodes of Mike Malakoff and I, a listener who moved his boat from Brunswick, Georgia, up to Burlington, Vermont. And when we were going up the Jersey coast, we stopped into Atlantic City to get some fuel. And I think the next bay up is Barnegat Bay. I think, isn't that the next inlet?
Great Bay is a little teeny one. It's no, so yeah, Barnegat would be north. I am about a half hour north of, maybe an hour north of Atlantic City. So it's the
Yeah.
next. There's another inlet, but you can't actually go into it. It's you can't even go in
Too
there.
small. So
Yeah.
what about, I've heard some mixed reviews about going into Barnegat. What's your experience with
I don't
that?
know that way. I honestly, I don't go there, so I haven't.
Ah.
I can't even say. I go Great Bay, and I've gone south. I can't say I've ever. Well, I've gone north, but I went all the way up to Sandy Hook. So
Oh,
I
okay.
haven't. Tons of people sail Barnegat Bay. That's not my bay, so I generally don't go there.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I was
So-
wondering about the inlet and some of those inlets get a pretty good, current going through them
Mine, it has a current, and there's a lot of shoaling. It's not a popular inlet because it's kind of nasty. You have to zigzag. There was a lot of channel markers, but they took them out. And I know it's the whole local knowledge thing. An old timer told me how to get in and out, and that's the way I go. It's not on the map. I follow the beach in, and it gets shallow. I only have 2 or 3 feet under my boat, but I can get in and out. So,
yes.
but you don't want to be going in when the wind's blowing the wrong way, and
Right.
you got to watch the tides, but you can get in and out. So generally, if the weather's bad, I'll go in Atlantic City, the Absecon Inlet, to get into
Yes.
Atlantic City, and then I can cut through the Intracoastal to the next bay north. But that's even really shallow, and you got to go through there at a decent tide too, because there's a couple really, really narrow spots that are really shoaly, and you kind of got to know where you are. And I've run aground there once already, so in my 27. So yeah, I don't like to go that way unless I have to.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a reason
Nice.
people don't go and stop there very often, because
Yes.
it's not great.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's good.
Very good. So if you just did that trip, what sort of, if you were going to do it again, what would you do differently? I'm talking Brunswick up to
I would
where
have
you
slowed
were.
down. I would have slowed
Yeah.
down. I pushed hard. Unlike you guys, I was doing as long as I could go, and I was doing 10 hours, 10 hours. But I did deliveries, like I said, and we were doing 24 hours a day. So we weren't familiar with the boat, and I wanted to get it home to my lab so I can work on it. You know what I mean? Like at my home ground where I can run back and forth, work on the boat. So it was kind of like, let's just get it home, just get it home, just get it home. So the next trip we take, I'm hoping to just slow down, take it easy,
Yeah.
and not be in a big rush. But I had taken time off work to go get the boat, and it was quite a few weeks off. And
Sure.
like I said, it was just like, let's get it home, get it done, and then we'll play. But we probably should have just added an extra week on and then just ate it. And, but we would have had probably a much better time, because I pushed
Yeah.
through some crappy weather and whatever. Like I said, I tortured my wife a little bit, but
Okay. Yeah.
she made it.
Yeah. You'd go slower. So that's a good suggestion. I think there is no, and like I said, I've done that trip 3 times, and I enjoy it.
I like the Intracoastal. There's some places that are pretty boring, but I wish I'd have stopped and, smelled the roses in a couple more places. The Chesapeake, we just pushed through. I mean, there's so many places to stop. We stopped at Tangier Island, which is just a little island in the middle. And we only stayed a night because we were sleeping at night at anchor and get up in the morning and go. But, we pulled in, walked around town real quick. And I think it was a Sunday, so nobody was around. But it was a cool little island. I kind of wish we'd have, hung out for a day and had some dinner somewhere, but we didn't.
Yeah.
We just kept going. And I'm more of we're anchor. We anchor all over the place. We don't generally go to marinas unless we needed fuel or we needed,
Mhm.
we kind of just kept going. And
Yeah.
we're comfortable anchoring pretty much anywhere. I got a big giant anchor, and we spent, I spent 2 months in the Bahamas just anchoring all over the place. So we're pretty comfortable with that. So we've got a pretty good
Yeah.
system going, my wife and I sleep okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, as I think I've said on this podcast before, I get anchor anxiety.
Yeah. I,
Especially when I'm on my boat. If I'm on
Yeah.
someone else's boat,
right.
it's a lot different.
I think my wife gets the anxiety, but I sleep really good. So I do set anchor alarms, and we haven't really had any trouble other than when we first started actually in Brigantine, which is where you pulled into Atlantic City. There's a little anchorage in there. And one time we had like I don't know if it was like a microburst or something came through, but we were down below, and all of a sudden it was like the world was coming to an end. And we got pushed, but we got pushed up into the grass, and we were in our other catamaran, and it didn't hurt anything. We just got pushed up onto the soft grass, and basically we're able to just pull ourselves back off. It was no big deal, but we don't really know. That was just a weird kind of a freak thing. So
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. So you mentioned here in our conversation that you recently went to the Bahamas. So talk
would have
about that
been
a little bit.
Couple, I guess it's been 2 years, I think now.
Yeah. So did you
But-
sail down from Jersey and then across?
Yeah, we did. Same thing. We took the ICW all the way down to Miami, well, below Miami to No Name Harbor, which
Yeah.
a lot of people cross from, which was super cool. So we went down, and we didn't know anybody. This is our first big trip, and we didn't make it. I didn't make any commitment like we have to get to the Bahamas. We said, all right, we're going to go south. If we get to the Bahamas, cool. It'll be great. So we ended up there. It was Christmas. We had left our house in November 1st. We made it to Miami, No Name Harbor. It was actually Christmas Eve.
Oh,
And I
wow.
remember we were walking, I was dinghying around trying to make some friends, but it seemed like everybody was, doing their holiday thing. So it was all good, but we had said hi to a couple people, and then had gone to a hardware store for whatever reason. And I saw a couple people in there with their foul weather gear on. And I was like, oh, you guys must be sailors. I said, I'm new to this. And my wife gets seasick, and we're trying to go to the Bahamas. Well, long story is there was this girl. She's really good at getting people together. And she said, well, we're going to do sundowners up on the beach. So we went, and then talking to people, had a few drinks and all that stuff. And then she said, well, we're going to leave tomorrow or whatever day it was exactly. I don't recall, but we said, okay, we'll go with you. So we went, and we left with, I think, 5 other boats. Well, we spent almost all the 2 months with those 5 other boats.
Oh, wow.
Turned out to be, it's a weird, freaky thing. Like, it doesn't normally happen. We've talked to them. They're like, this never happens, but we all got along really great. I still talk to the people. But I guess 2 boats, they had gone there together before. So the one family, they had actually raised their kids on a boat. So they were boaters for sure.
Yeah.
Or cruisers, I guess
Sounds
we'll call them. So they knew their way all around. They knew all the islands, and the other couple had gone with them. So they kind of knew. And then there was another, I guess, myself or my wife and I, and then 2 other boats that were kind of new people, but they kind of led us all around. And we had a great time though. It was such a good time. And like I said, I met some good friends that we're still friends with. We actually went on a trip to Dominica by airplane, but 2 of the couples, 2, maybe, let's see, 1, 2, 3 of the couples are still out on the boats. They're like full-time people. Well, they were in nearby islands. They actually sailed to Dominica to meet us there. It was so cool. We flew to this island in the Caribbean, and our friends actually just sailed. They took time. We were just amazed. They took all that time. They actually, like, one couple went through the storm to get there, and I'm just like, they're good. They're good people, and like I said, we got along with them really good. And we've actually had one of the couples came and stayed at our house because they were traveling around. And so yeah, it was kind of a weird thing that normally probably doesn't happen, but it was a great trip. So then,
Yeah, I mean, there is this sort of camaraderie that happens between mariners and
Sure.
sailors to sailors, and very helpful to each other, very
Yeah.
friendly to each other. And I've often said, if we had more of that in the world, the world would be a much better place.
It's true. It is a different breed of people. Like I said,
Yeah.
I think I had told you before, where I live, it's the world of power boaters. There's maybe 6 sailboats that sail on my bay, and I know most of the people now because
Yeah.
I've met them all. But they're very nice and friendly. But all the rest of the power boaters, not that they're mean people, but they're definitely not like. So I'll go out. If you see a sailboat out on my bay, you call them, and next thing you know, we're talking. Tell them on the radio, we're talking about boats, and hey, stop by my house, because they all live kind of close. So I've met a couple people, and it's been good. I do like the sailing community. They're good
Yeah.
people, and I like helping people, so it's kind of cool. So yeah, it's a good thing.
Yeah, that works out really well. So
Yeah.
I wanted to switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
Oh, wait, let me, before I do that. So talk to me, if you were going to do the Bahamas again, I'll ask that same question. What would you do different this time?
Ooh, I don't know. I wish I could do the same trip over again, but so we went down and we stayed with the people for quite a while, and then we decided, okay, we came to do this trip on our own. So we did take on. We left. We had gone all the way down to Georgetown. I forget which island that's on, but it's a ways down. And we left by ourselves. So we were the first like group to kind of break up the season, and we started heading back north. But it was cool to take time, just me and my wife, like figuring it out. And somebody wasn't holding our hand the whole way. Not that they
Yeah.
did hold our hands, but it was cool. Like every morning, there was one guy that was really big into weather. So all the guys would go over, we'd hop in his boat, and he had this big screen with all the weather reports. And, we'd talk about what our plan was going to be for the next week. There's a big storm. Okay, we should head to this certain anchorage and hang out there because it's really protected. So it was kind of cool having people that knew more about the weather and
Yeah.
where to go. And so that was nice. But then once we went down and kind of figured a lot of it out, we did okay on ourselves by our own, by ourselves when we went back. So I don't know that I would do anything different. I'd try to stay longer, maybe.
Yeah. Well, that's a great answer. Right?
It was awesome. It was really great fun. And then I'd love to go even further south to some of the other islands, because the Bahamas is great, but all these other islands are pretty incredible too down there. So
right. Yeah, the Bahamas is just the beginning. That's just the beginning. Yeah.
And it's supposedly getting more expensive. I haven't been back. There's a lot more. They're charging for a lot more things now, from what I understand. Yes. But no, I'd do it again in a heartbeat. I really hope to, actually, but we're working that out. Like I said, my wife kind of gets seasick, so trying to figure out how not to beat her up too much. And
yeah,
I would like a monohull too, but she likes catamarans because it's a different feel and she likes it. So I'm like, okay, if you're even involved with it at all, we'll get whatever kind of boat you want. So
sure.
That's why we have the catamaran and stuff. But no, it's good.
Super. So let's change gears a little bit. So one of the ways that you've gotten some offshore experience is by going on some deliveries, and you have used OPO, or Offshore Passage Opportunities. A guy named Hank Schmidt runs that.
Yep.
And so you've used them a bunch of times. So can you kind of talk about that experience? Because, I think it's a great way for people to get offshore experience and learn the ropes and learn stuff. And it helps them decide whether this is for me or not, because it's different, right? When you're 100 miles offshore and you're sailing 24 hours a day, every day, that's different than bopping around, in the bay or coming up the ICW. So talk about, why you did that and what the experience was like, et cetera.
So I had told you, we had started sailing, like, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 years ago. And I really wanted to learn more. I like my little boat, and we were cruising around the bay, just like you said. But I'm like, well, I want to learn more about offshore stuff and all that. And like you had said about getting onto other people's boats, there's not as many people near me that have those type of boats. There's a handful of sailboats. There's no real, where I'm at, there's no dock to go walk down. And the closest yacht clubs are probably an hour ride at least, if not further from me. There's some up in Barnegat Bay, but they're a drive. I got to go up the Parkway, and it's not close. It's not convenient. So I started looking online. I thought, well, maybe I'll just take I saw that you could take some offshore trips. You pay the money, they train you, this and that. I stumbled onto OPO, and they were close by. They were on the East Coast. They're up, based out of Hale Site, New York, which is it's right on Long Island Sound. So I signed up for a trip, and I paid for it. So I did pay, I guess it was I don't recall what it was. It was basically a trip from New York down to the Annapolis Boat Show. So basically you get on the boat and you sail the boat from New York to Annapolis. And then you get to stay on the boat for the boat show, which was cool because I had a base, and Hank usually has a slip right next door to the boat show. So it was great. I sailed down, learned how to sail the boat a little bit. And this is where I cut through. We were talking about cutting close to Cape May. There was a little cut that he knew to go around. Went up Delaware Bay, and it was a storm. People were getting sick, and I was like, this is great. I love it. And we sailed up. I think we spent a night up on the C&D Canal next door. Anyway, we made it to Annapolis, but it was cool. We got to go to the boat show. You could go right back to the boat. It was right there, and then my wife met me there, which was neat. So she met me for the boat show, and I went back home with her in the car. And then he got another crew and took them back north. Well, he also does. So what's cool about
that was sort of, pardon me for interrupting you, but that was sort of an instructional trip. He provided some instruction. It was a delivery, but built into that delivery was sort of, I'm going to teach you stuff along the way.
Yes. Well, and one of the things that's different about OPO, and I can't say from personal experience because I never did another crewing service, but what I do know about OPO is that the captains are sort of vetted and the crew is sort of vetted. So either he or another captain that he knows would have met me, has been out to sea with me, and can say, you know what, Chris is a good guy, or maybe you shouldn't take Chris with you. I don't think he'll tell you that, but basically, I mean, Eve, I've talked to him, and he goes, I don't know that you and this guy would get along so good. Like, I I was applying for another crewing job, and so that was kind of the cool thing. So I could tell you, I did a delivery, and I thought, well, I'm good at this. This is easy. So I had, really long story short, is I met a guy in Florida, and I thought, I'll help you take your boat up north because I just wanted to take a ride on the boat. Well, it turns out the guy it was terrible. I ended up jumping off the boat in Charleston, South Carolina. I rented a car and drove home. It was terrible, actually. The guy he wanted like a slave on his boat or something. I don't know. It was not a good trip, and I almost was like, what am I doing? This is terrible. It was bad. So,
and that was not an OPO trip, is that correct?
I did that on my own, and that's where I wish I now do stuff through OPO. I don't do random trips with random strangers anymore because it didn't work out well. And I have had Hank tell me before, I called, I said, hey, how about this captain? And he goes, well, I don't know if you're the guy for that. So he's trying to tell me, you're not the best match, which is great because, like I said, these people are vetted. And he uses a lot of professional captains. So that I've done boat shows with Hank. I've actually delivered some boats to boat shows. I did a delivery from France on a relatively new catamaran. I mean, I crossed the Atlantic, me and another captain. And I was gone a month and a half for that one. But I've been with that same captain. I guess it's been 2 weeks ago, I just did another delivery with him from Miami to Charleston. Offshore we just rode the Gulf Stream up, but so what happens is they have like an email list, and you pay it's a yearly fee. I think it's $150 to be on this mailing list. And anything, like if a captain has a delivery, well, have you ever heard of the Salty Dog Rally?
Yes, I sure have. Yep.
So Hank right now is in Bermuda, and I guess they use different crew to get to Bermuda. These big boats that are all in the Salty Dog Rally. And every time they get to Bermuda, he's like, "Well, they lost crew or something." So, he just sent an email. Well, this boat lost their crew. If you got time, you can get on this boat, and they're going to Antigua or wherever they're going. And generally, the way it works is you pay to get to and from the boat, but all the on boat expenses are paid. So they'll feed you. You can stay on the boat. Sometimes they'll let you stay a little bit longer, like when you get to your destination. It all depends. It's usually, so there's an email list, and it'll give you a description of what, how long it's going to be, how long, how many miles, how long do you think it's going to be? And a lot of those questions, like you have to get right off the boat as soon as you get there, because sometimes it's a delivery for a
Sure.
new boat.
The
So
owner.
they want you
Right.
off the boat. But sometimes it's an owner that just wants somebody to go with them or them. There was a husband and wife with a dog recently. I just saw one, but they were like, well, you're welcome to stay for a couple of days in Antigua. There's supposedly a party at the end of when everybody crosses. I didn't go on
Right.
this trip, but these are the kind of things that come up. And it's good. Most of the crew, I've met a couple crew on these deliveries, and they're all nice people. They're the same kind of boat as me. They're just trying to learn how to sail and get some big boat offshore experience. So I've done big monohulls with him, or with him being OPO. But I've also done. I just did the 44-foot catamaran with this other captain from Miami. That was the other day. But
Yeah.
I've been from Puerto Rico to Bermuda to Massachusetts. That was one run I did. I've done quite a few. Anyway, I've gone south, I've gone north,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
the hardest part is
So-
getting enough time to take off of work.
Yeah, it sounds like what OPO does is they sort of vet the captains.
Yep.
And they sort of vet the crew.
Yep.
So you kind of weed out the people who, maybe don't match.
Right.
And then for that annual fee, you have access to this mailing list, and if people are looking for crew, they send out, and if you can respond, that's great.
Right. And they
Yeah.
pretty much tell you, if you meet a good captain along the way and he's looking for crew, pass him along. But if you meet a captain along the way that's not a very nice person, don't give him our phone number. And it's the
Yeah.
same thing for crew. He's like, send good people, because we want to send good crew to a good captain. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Right.
So
Right.
if you come in and you're not the greatest person, you probably won't get too many trips. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's been good
And,
for me.
So I actually helped a Salty Dog boat bring their boat
Okay.
back from Nova Scotia, from Halifax, back down to Baltimore. And this was not through OPO. It was through Salty Dogs. I joined Salty Dogs just to look for crewing opportunities. And so that trip started in Baltimore, went up to Halifax, and then the crew that they had to go back home, and they were looking for a new crew. So we got connected through the Salty Dog site, and on their way up, they were stopping in Newport.
Right,
And I keep my boat on Narragansett Bay. So, first we talked on the telephone, and you could tell we were sort of both checking each other out.
Yeah.
Like, all right, what do you do? What kind of safety equipment do you have, and blah, blah, blah. And then we actually had dinner together in Newport.
Okay.
And
That's
and then
good.
after dinner, the next day we both said, okay, thumbs up. I think we're a good enough match that we can do this, 2-week trip.
Right.
Because it's a big commitment from both parties. And like you said, if there's a mismatch there in personalities or the way you like to do things, or risk tolerance, as I call it, it'll make the trip not pleasant for both of you.
So I like how you've done it, but so one of the things that usually is in the emails is, as far as safety equipment, the boat's got a brand new life raft and an EPIRB, and they have Starlink. Hank asks a lot of those questions. but obviously you can make a phone call, and once you're in contact with the captain, you could make
Right.
those decisions. But now the one that I did from France, I never met this captain. Hank said he's a professional guy. I've known him for a long time. He's a good guy. So I said, okay. And my wife said, well, if you want to do it, do it. So I got on a plane and I flew to France. I'd never met this guy. Met him,
Yeah.
I met him in Paris. And I said, oh, hey, are you Dale? And he said, are you Chris? And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, let's go sailing. So that was kind of nuts. It was during COVID, and they couldn't get the boat back is really what it was. And because everything was shut down for COVID. So we went over, and we were saying, well, we're on business, and they were letting business travel, I guess.
Yes.
So we went, and we had a guy from France that was supposed to come back with us. And the idea was we were going to leave. We were in Le Grand Mont, where they make Outremer catamaran. They make a ton of boats there. We were going to go from there to the Straits of Gibraltar, spend whatever time we needed. From there to the Canary Islands, and then from Canary Islands across the Atlantic. Well, when we left, I'm trying to remember when he left. Oh, he left before Le Grand Mont. So the morning we were supposed to leave, and we had done a little test sail the day before, and we were supposed to leave, and I get up in the morning, and this guy's, all his gear is on the deck of the boat. And I'm like, what's going on? He goes, I can't do the trip. He bailed out. And I kind of understand. He was worried that if he had left France, that he might not be able to come back with all the COVID restrictions.
Right.
We were kind of let down, obviously, but so we decided, all right, it's just the two of us. Do you want to go? We'll go to the Straits of Gibraltar and see how we do. If either of us gets COVID, because nobody knew what was going on, we're like, well, at least we'll be able to fly home or something from the Gibraltar. So we went there, and then there was a big storm out in the Atlantic. So we waited there a week. We were there for a week. Me and this guy, we toured all around. We went all over Spain, and we were just cruising around because we had a week. And then we said, all right, well, let's try it. Let's do another jump. We'll go to the Canaries and see how we do together. And so it took us a week to get 5 days to get from Le Grand Mont to Gibraltar. And it took us another 5 days to get to the Canary Islands. We got there, we provisioned, and we said, well, what do you think? And I said, I'm getting along just fine. We're doing good. And he was trying to get other people along the way, but we were having a hard time because of COVID. And he goes, well, do you think we can do it? And I said, I don't know. Do you think we can do it? And he goes, yeah, we can do it. So we stayed one night in the Canary Islands, and the next time we just took off. And then it was 27 days, just he and I, all the way back to Miami. But yeah, I know you talk about shifts and all, and we did it was 5-hour shifts, 24 hours a day. It was by the time we were getting close, I was about done, but I have a gift of being able to sleep pretty much anywhere. So, and even I just did this trip with him this past, couple weeks ago, and we did 4-hour shifts, but I'm able to just sleep on my 4 off, and he can too. So he sleeps and I sleep. It's weird. It's like you get so many extra days because it's like a night and day. You know what I mean? It's like you go to sleep and it's like the next day. And we were only gone 3 days the last trip, but it felt like I was like for like 12 or 13 days. I kept waking up, going to sleep, and
yeah, because they're 5-hour days or 4-hour days.
Right. But we made it, and it was good. And I get along good with the guy, and we work well together. So, but that's unfortunately where my wife, where this last trip, I'm like, go. I'm just on my machine to just go get this boat to point A to point B. That's probably one of the bad things about going with delivery guys is they're trying to get the boat home. But personally, I kind of like having a mission. That's fun for me, but I know that's not for everybody though. And that's how not every delivery is that way with OPO. There's delivery captains, but generally these guys are on a schedule. So you got to know that. But I've also seen ads for families that are they'll pretty much tell you this isn't a forced march, he likes to say. This is more of a pleasure cruise, and we plan on stopping every night at Anchorage or at marinas. So a lot of this is in the descriptions of how they're sent out, and you call and you talk to the people, I guess, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But for me, it's worked out good.
Yeah. That sounds like a great resource, right? That runs the spectrum from deliveries, which can be very focused and very, regimented, I'll say, to
Mhm.
a family looking for an extra crew member.
Yeah. I
And
like
they're,
the
and,
deliveries, the
you know,
forced ones, because generally those guys, for me, they're going to push through some of the weather that maybe some
that's right.
people wouldn't. And I kind of wanted to learn some of that. So for me, it's okay. Like I didn't mind that we kind of pushed, and like I
Right.
said, it's for everybody's own taste. And like I said, there's a little bit of everything though, so you could get a taste of really whatever you want.
Right.
So
Right.
anyway,
So when you think about crewing for somebody, a captain, and let's say Hank doesn't know him, you know, he doesn't say this guy's good. What questions do you ask? What things do you look for?
kind of the things about the safety equipment. What kind of safety equipment? You know, what's your planned route? Have you done the route before? Or you know, how long have you been sailing? And you know, the
Hmm.
pretty basic questions. I think pretty much the same stuff you would. And actually, I think if you go on the OPO website, I'm pretty sure he had like a list of, if you don't know what to ask, like here's your whole checklist of things you probably should be asking. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
but generally I pretty much go with what's been recommended. I honestly, I went on this one trip and I pretty much won't do it again, where I had somebody offer me, hey, I know some guy that's trying to get his
Yeah.
boat moved. And I'm like, I've never met him. I don't think I'm going to do it. So I do like having somebody that's already talked to somebody. And I kind of feel like, you know, he told me he was a good guy. So I trust in
Yeah.
OPO.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's
it
good.
was
There's value in that, right? I mean,
yeah.
because it can be exciting enough. You don't need
Mhm.
need extra excitement on every trip.
Right. So yeah, no, it's been good. And like I said, my wife gets seasick, so she doesn't always like to go, but we were just doing this thing, and she goes, "Well, go take another trip." So I did. I just went offshore and spent a couple days offshore, and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to be back on land again.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's another perspective that's good. Lots of times when you have couples sailing, both couples don't sort of have the same
right.
level of intensity that they want to experience. So this gives you, like, my spouse and I can go and we can have a nice time, but I'd like to get a little more, passage making done, and there's
Right.
an opportunity for you to do this. So I
Well, I
think it's
could
great
use
from
it.
that perspective.
Yeah. So like the Bahamas you had talked about. Now I don't know that my wife would want to go. I know she doesn't want to go offshore from New Jersey to the Bahamas. But now me being, I could go on OPO and I could probably get another crew to go with me
Right.
and get the boat delivered to the Bahamas with me and another guy. We go offshore, we get it there, and then she could fly in. You know, so
Right.
I could get the boat moved a lot longer distance, and
That's right.
with somebody else, and then, like I said, bring her in later. So
Right. Right. And
it's
that
all
opens up all sorts of opportunities,
right.
for exploring new places.
Mhm.
That once you get there, it's coastal cruising. It's hopping from,
Yep.
bay to bay. It's just
Yep.
getting the boat there is maybe not for both of you. Man, that's great.
Correct. Yeah. So no, it's good. I like it. I keep paying my membership because I don't want to fall off the list. Because I do plenty of sailing now. I really don't need it, but I I like it. I like having that opportunity to do some offshore stuff. And there's a couple deliveries. I wish I was retired because I was like, man, I would have done that one too. But got to go to work, unfortunately, every now and then.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But eh,
Excellent. So we've been chatting for 45 minutes here, so I want to start wrapping this up. So, Chris, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I can't think of anything.
Okay.
Bela. I'm not really good at that stuff.
Well, this was great. Yeah, I just,
No,
I
I
always
think that's
ask that
pretty good.
question.
All right.
Yeah. Excellent. So thanks again so much for agreeing to do this. You've been a wonderful guest, and I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Well, thanks. It was fun.
Bela, really informative and important interview. What were your key takeaways?
So we've talked about this in the past, and that is, what are ways of getting some offshore experience if you're not quite ready to take your own boat on a long offshore trip? And these sort of matchmaking organizations like OPO are really good for that. So it's a great way to sort of cut your teeth on knowing what it's like to go on a 1, 2, or 3, or 4, or maybe a 10-day offshore experience. Typically, the way these work is you pay for getting yourself to the boat, and then you pay for getting yourself home from wherever the trip ends. And they sort of cover all the other costs like food, any local transportation, etc. Now, the other thing to remember is that if you're doing this with a delivery captain, right? So there's people who make a living moving boats for people, because there's people who keep their boat in Maine during the summer, and then they want to have it down in the Bahamas for the winter, and they hire and pay somebody to move that boat down to the warmer tropical waters for the winter. And these are delivery captains who take on these jobs, and they often hire crew. And but you have to remember that these delivery captains are on a schedule. So they will often, go out in weather that is less than ideal. It's not a leisurely trip. And you have to remember that you, as a crew member, are at work. You are working for that captain. So it's not you and your 2 buddies doing a trip. So I think those are just some things to think about.
True. And I mean, yeah, this is work, and it's not for somebody that has a real limited amount of time. If you've got a really heavy duty job with no vacation, probably not the right option. But for some listeners, my sense is this might be a great way to enjoy some new types of sailing. And I can think of 3 situations where this really might be something that's worth thinking about. One is if there's people that want to experience sailing in locations that they wouldn't normally have access to. So if they want to go offshore or go to a part of the world that they've never sailed before but always wanted to, this is kind of a cool way to get there, right? Again, you fly in and you join up and you come back, right? So it's a neat way to do this. You've done this yourselves. You've seen a couple of neat places that maybe you just would have taken your own boat out to, right? The second is for those that want to sail on boats that are different than theirs. Maybe you wanted to sail on a catamaran, or maybe something larger, or maybe something more with a racing feel to it. And this is a neat way to kind of have those experiences, and in a way that you can access these things and not have to make a big commitment to renting or buying something. And then third, it seems kind of cool for those who don't have the financial resources to buy a boat, or the time required to own a boat, or they live in a place where it's hard to access this. This, again, might be an interesting way to get some new and different experiences and build your expertise. From your perspective, can you recommend these types of experiences, Bela?
Yeah, I think these are great. And, just in my conversation with Chris, he talked about doing some trips that were a couple days long. He also took a trip where he sailed across the Atlantic Ocean, right? So they come in a wide variety of flavors that you can participate in. And, as listeners of this podcast know, I've done several trips helping friends move boats from the south up north, or from the north down to the south. And I also did a trip from Halifax, Nova Scotia to Baltimore, and that was as a crew member on a boat in a Salty Dog rally. Salty Dogs are an organization, a loosely knit organization of sailors, and twice a year they do rallies. They do, usually in the summertime, one up in the northern hemisphere, and then in the wintertime they do one down to the tropics someplace. And so they too often look for crew, because some of these trips are several weeks, or if not months long. And so they looking for someone to help them move a boat to a location, because maybe a husband and wife who are going to spend the winter in the Bahamas, day sailing, which is great, but they need help getting their boat from Newport down to the Bahamas. And that's not a trip that just the 2 of them want to do. So they'll hire somebody, or they'll look for crew to help them do that. And so those things are great. And lots of times they also have to get the boat back. So again, they're looking for crew. So there's lots of different places you can look. So there's like these, I call them dating sites, sort of like OPO, offshore passage opportunities. And the good thing about those is both sides, both the captains and the crew, are somewhat vetted. And that degree of vettedness varies, but there's several of these sites. Some of them are free, some of them cost a little bit of money to join, but they're all great. And I think you could sort of sort through those and figure out what works best for you. There's also a whole bunch of these rallies. There's rallies from north to south in the fall. There's rallies from the south to the north in the spring. There's also rallies that go across the Atlantic Ocean in the fall, so go to the Med, and then in the spring come back from the Med to the east coast of the United States. So they all have sites. There's the Atlantic Rally for cruisers. And if you did some a little bit of Googling, you'll find a bunch of these. There's also a bunch of races that are long distance races, like Newport to Bermuda. There's Marion to Bermuda. There's Newport to Halifax, I think, or someplace up that way. There's a bunch of these races. And the thing to remember about these races, you might not be able to crew on the race itself because they're looking for experienced people. However, all of these boats need to get back. So the Newport to Bermuda race, there's a whole bunch of boats that end up in Bermuda, and all of them have to get back. So oftentimes they have crew to help them bring the boat back. And it's not the people who raced the boat there. It's more of a leisurely trip back. So those are all good places to look. Lots of times, like the Atlantic Rally for Cruisers website or the Newport to Bermuda website will have a section where people might be looking for crew and to make these connections. So I just think it's a great way to get experience. I've done it a couple of times, and they've all been really wonderful, and a great way to sort of get experiences that are challenging for you to get otherwise.
Cool. Last question for you. Chris talked a little bit about going to a boat show. Right? Have you ever been to a boat show?
Yes. Yeah, I've been to several.
So maybe for listeners that haven't been to one, what should they expect, and what are the benefits that you might get when you go to one of these?
So the boat selling industry has changed a lot in the last 30 years. 30 years ago, boat dealers would stock boats. They would have boats in stock. I'm talking big boats. And that is pretty rare these days. So if you want to go look at new boats, on the East Coast of the United States, there's three big shows. There's the Newport Boat Show, which is in the fall. It's in like September. And I've been to that a couple of times. That has both sailboats and power boats in it. So it's a great way, it's like going to a car dealer lot, or it's like going to an auto mall where there's 4 or 5 dealers within walking distance of each other. And you can go look at brand new boats from a bunch of different dealers, or a bunch of different manufacturers in this case. Then there's the Annapolis Sailboat Show, which is 100% sailboats, much bigger than the Newport Boat Show. And that happens in early October, I believe. And then there's the Miami Boat Show, which happens, I'm not exactly sure. I think it's like November-ish, but I might be wrong on that date. Those are kind of the 3 big boat shows. For those who are sailors, I would recommend going to the Annapolis Boat Show. Now, there's a bunch of other ancillary things that go on at these boat shows. Many of these boat shows have all sorts of seminars and workshops that you can go to and participate in. They'll have a half-day workshop on getting your boat ready for a long passage. They'll have a workshop on sailing across the Atlantic Ocean. Well, they'll have speakers come in and talk about various different things. One of our recent episodes, we talked about one of these sort of educational programs that people do. So, and there's all sorts of other manufacturers there selling stuff like all the other accoutrements that you need when you have a boat, whether it be clothing or radios or electronics, life rafts, all of that stuff. So it's just a great way to see all that stuff all in one place. And many times the manufacturers have special pricing for boat shows. So if you want to, buy something there, they usually have some pretty good discounts. So I've been to Newport several times, and it's a good experience.
Cool. So something for those listeners that haven't been to consider checking one out, right? Seems like it might be a neat way not only to see products, but to meet some people and to maybe learn something.
Right.
And
And staying on the topic of what Chris and I talked about, all those boats that are in Newport, not all of them, but probably 80% of them get moved down to Annapolis. And then 80% of those get moved down to Miami. So here again, there's people needed to help move those boats. And in that case, you're probably on a nice brand new boat.
Yeah. Pretty cool with all the latest and greatest. They don't send the crappy ones to the boat show. Stripped down.
That's right.
Usually. Yeah.
That's right.
Neat. Cool. I like it.
Yeah. So what do you think? Wrap this one up, Mike?
Sure, Bela. Listeners, thanks for joining us for yet another episode. And we hope you found our conversation with Chris both interesting and thought-provoking as we did. To contact us, as always, please feel free to send us an email at sailingtheeast. That's all one word at gmail.com.
And finally, if you enjoyed the podcast, hit that like button on your app. You can also find the podcast on YouTube. If you know of someone that would make a good guest on the show, let us know. So that's it for today's episode. Hope to see you out on the water soon. So until next time, signing off from upstate New York. Take care.
And from over here in Münster, Germany, thanks for listening. And Bela, I look forward to seeing you and all of our listeners next time.